All right, here we go with just a few very, very short notes for today. Then we're going to do a review game. Kind of hard for you if you're not here to play the review game or be a part of the review. If you miss out on the day before test or quiz, there's not going to be this giant lesson online. I can't even do the stuff that we do in the video. I don't think I can show it. We'll try, but I don't think there's a possible way to do it. So you're missing a giant part of the review. So do your best to be here if you can. Now, this is going to come up a lot. What's the main source of energy for the water cycle? The sun. What's the main source of energy for the ecosystems? The sun. For the most part, in all of these, when it talks about what's the main source of energy, it all starts with the sun, because the sun is the main source of energy, because it gives energy to what in an ecosystem? What biotic factor in an ecosystem does the sun give energy to? Plants, because plants go through photosynthesis. You are correct, and we'll pause this to put that on our anchor chart. So if we know that the sun is the main source of energy because it gives energy to the plants, and then the plants end up giving energy to the herbivores, and then most of those herbivores end up getting eaten by carnivores, and we have this chain of energy that's getting moved. It's called a food chain, and if you start mixing those up and crisscrossing those, it's a food web. It's really easy. Nothing we need to super stress about. Food chain and food pyramids. Now, we can see that the sun is the main source of energy. It would give energy to the grass right here, correct? This grasshopper, you see this word primary consumer. I won't get too technical into those until next week. It's the first thing that eats in an ecosystem, right? In this ecosystem. Now, the bluebird comes along and eats the grasshopper. That would be the second thing that eats. Therefore, they call that the secondary consumer. So the bird eats the grasshopper. Then the snake comes along and eats the bird. It is the third thing that eats. And they label that sometimes as the third level consumer, or you might see this very fancy word, tertiary consumer. At least it starts with a T, so we can think third. And that works out for us. You can go to the owl. It is an apex predator. There's nothing like hunting the owl. We also can call that, because that's the fourth thing. It could be the fourth consumer. We can call that also a very fancy quaternary consumer. We'll put those on the board in a big giant pyramid at some point. And then when any of those things die, or anything's left over, or any of them poop, we know that decomposers come along and break those things down, right, into good nutrients for the soil, which grows more grass, which starts this wonderful cycle of life over again when we have food chains and food pyramids. Food chain. This is the path of energy in food from one organism to another. I don't care which one of those you pick. I'm going to do the shortest one. I'm going to say grass to rabbit to hawk. I'm not even going to draw that. I'm going to write those three words as an example on the anchor chart. I'm going to use this second one. There's so many different things that you can think of. Grass to gazelle to lion is a perfect food chain, but it's the path of energy. You have the sun, which gives energy to the grass. The grass gives energy to the rabbit. The energy that the rabbit got from the grass, which it got from the sun, is then passed on to the hawk. And if for some reason the hawk was eaten by something else, it would pass energy on to something else. And you would keep seeing this path of energy from one organism to another. So I'm going to put that on the board. I'm literally going to write this right here on the anchor chart. So again, do be very careful. It's a very common misconception for people to think that this arrow means eats. It's not grass eats the grasshopper and the grasshopper eats the blue jay. When you say that out loud, it sounds very odd. It's actually the opposite. It's grass gives energy to the grasshopper gives energy to the blue jay, and then the blue jay gives energy to the owl. Just take your time when you see food chains, think it out, and I promise you will be okay. Food chains. We're going to skip. We'll pause it. I am not going to spend too much time on these next few slides because I feel like that's something I need to do. That might be where I need to start next week or maybe tomorrow after the quiz. Probably the most difficult thing about this is we have the words increase and decrease that I think we all know what they mean. Increase means to go up, decrease means to go down. And AJ, when we're doing these, they're going to say some really weird things. Like, what would happen to this food chain if the bird, the owl, or sorry, the bird population down here, the bird population increased. Not the owl, the bird. So I look at the birds and I think there's more birds. What would happen? So then I have to look at what do the birds eat? See, it's very easy to do that, isn't it? It's so easy to look ahead and be like, oh, they eat the snakes. Wait a minute, time out. The owl might eat the snake. You see how easy it is to do that? Trust me, it happens. This is where it happens. I like, okay, birds eat grasshoppers. If there's more birds, what happens to the grasshopper population? It decreases. And maybe some in some places, but again, I'm not gonna go through too many of those because I really feel like we need to spend a whole day on that. And there's a whole bunch of those in here. There we go. Food web. Food web. If you look inside of this picture, I see grass to rabbit to fox. Do you see that very short food chain? Grass to rabbit to fox. But in an ecosystem, is it usually just grass and a rabbit and a fox live in there? No, there's more living things, more biotic factors interacting. So there might be this small mouse or a vole that eats the grass. Well, guess what? The fox might eat that vole, or a hawk, a kestrel could come by and eat that vole. So now I've got these crisscrossing food chains. That's all it is. A food web is when food chains overlap. Nothing major about that. Now it does get a little weird when you look at this and you say, what would happen if something increased or decreased? Because you got to make sure you got to look at all the lines and where things are connected. But again, food web would be the last thing that we take notes on in here today, because I'm not going to dig too deep. I want to do the review because I want to make sure everybody's ready for that quiz tomorrow. Food webs, I'm going to write this exact definition right here down on the anchor chart. Overlapping food chains in an ecosystem.